What would it feel like to be truly, deeply happy, regardless of your circumstances? Did you know that happiness is a choice and not a result? That you can create your life on purpose? Join us now to learn more. This is the Time to Rise and Thrive radio show. And here's your host, mindset coach, and facilitator of change, Jackie Mott.
Hello and welcome. Welcome to Time to Rise and Thrive on Inspired Choices Network. I'm so glad you're with me today. I am your host, Jackie Mott, mindset and empowerment expert, and it's been kind of a crazy time, really exciting stuff. So I'm going to share some of that with you a little bit later in the show, but holy cow, the week has been insane and wonderful. Have you ever experienced that where things are really kind of crazy and chaotic and also really great all at the same time? If you haven't, you're in the right place, because today we are talking about joyful living. We are talking about choosing to be joyful in your life, even when things are not really happening that could make you joyful. Now, for me this week, in all honesty, that's not been the case at all, because everything that's going on really is quite wonderful. But sometimes, life can be difficult. Sometimes we have no choice but to walk through tough circumstances. So if you want to choose joy, you are absolutely 100% in the right place. I'm going to encourage you, before we get too far in, to grab yourself a pen and paper, because as we go through the show, I'm going to be sharing with you some of my experiences, some of the things that I've learned, and how I've learned to put those things into practice. In the third segment of the show, we are going to get into the practical. How do we do this, Jackie? Okay. So grab that pen and paper and be ready. And if you are not in a position right now where you can do that, that's okay. You can find the recordings of the show on all of the major platforms, the on-demand platforms for podcasts and different things. We are all over the place. We're on Binge TV Network. We are on iHeartRadio and Spreaker and like Apple TV, Google TV. We are everywhere. So if you feel like something resonates and you're not in a position to make some notes right now, or you'd just like to listen to it again to sort of get a handle on what was actually said, then you can go back and find those recordings whenever you like, whenever you do have time, and listen to them again. All of the recordings, and we are over 100 now. I don't know what our number is, but I know we're over 100 episodes have been recorded so far. So go ahead and find them and see if there's something else that might resonate for you. See if there's another title that you kind of go, maybe that's something that I need to think about. So what do we do here on Time to Rise and Thrive? Every Friday afternoon, we are live at 1 p.m. Eastern. Figure out your time zone, but we're live every Friday afternoon. And when you come to the show, here's what you can expect. We are going to talk about mindset stuff. We're going to be talking about subliminal soundtrack, which is my terminology, and I'll explain that in just a moment. We talk about recognizing your unique gifts, your beauty, your value, and the contribution that you are to the world. If you don't understand that that is absolutely 100% true, if you need some support or some guidance on how to do that, I am here every single Friday afternoon. So come back and join me. I think you can even subscribe to the show. I'm not sure how you do that, but I'm pretty sure you can. So find us here on Friday afternoons and let's have some conversation. Let's have some conversation about this thing. If you've got questions or challenges, throw them my way. And you can also find me, of course, on Facebook at Jackie Mott, Mindset and Empowerment Expert, and you'll find everything that's going on. That's the best place to go. So when I'm talking about this subliminal soundtrack, what is that? This is my terminology. Now, I'm pretty sure that all of us have probably heard something about the stuff that's going on in the back of your mind, right? The stuff that's happening back there all day, every day. And this is my terminology for it. So I call it a subliminal soundtrack because it's a loop of messages that plays in the back of your mind all day, every day. It's made up of little bits of information that you've picked up throughout the course of your life. So every conversation you've had, every lesson you've learned, every relationship, every single experience has given you little bits of information that you've stored back there on that subliminal soundtrack. And we use that information to create our belief systems. Belief systems are really so very important because they dictate how we live our lives, what we do. So when we're stuck in a position where we are holding on to, or maybe not even aware of, a limiting belief that we're carrying around with us, often we find that no matter how hard we try, we can't quite get there. And that's why it's so important for us to talk about this stuff. So there are two very important and kind of uncomfortable truths when we're talking about the subliminal soundtrack and those belief systems. The first is what we believe to be true will be true for us, even if it's based on completely incorrect information. So, have you ever seen two people who witnessed exactly the same circumstance or had, even the memes and stuff that you see online, and they had a completely like polar opposite reaction to the thing that happened? Have you ever seen that? Very likely that's because they have a different belief system that they have interpreted whatever that thing is, right? So if you witness, I don't even know. I keep wanting to go to an accident, but that doesn't really feel light or right for this particular thing. But you witness the exact same thing, and one person goes, "Oh yeah, okay, that's not even if it's a thing." i- that's not really a bad thing, because what did you learn from it? And the other person goes, "Oh my God, I am so offended. That is so wrong on every right." You know what I'm talking about? This happens all the time in the world these days. We've gotten really caught up in how things make us feel. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but we're going to be talking about that specifically as we go through today's show with this joyful living. How do you choose joy? How do you choose joy? We're going to get there. Second uncomfortable truth that it's important for us to understand is that we create our lives built on those belief systems that we carry. So when we are in a position where we have let's talk about money. I love talking about money. Just so you know, I love talking about money. Let's talk about money for a second. So, you have somebody who is born into a circumstance where money is readily available and it's easy to come by. They are very likely to have a completely different way of being with their finances than somebody who grew up where money was really stretched thin or not available, and they felt like they didn't have access to it, right? Makes perfect sense. One has ease and one has struggle. So the way that they're going to be with their finances is going to be dictated in some way by what they have learned and what they have attached to the idea of money. Somebody over here that has that ease and it's always available, I've never had to worry about having enough in my life, is very likely going to have a relationship with money sort of like it's a tool. It's a thing. It's a thing that helps me to facilitate whatever it is that I want to do with my life. Where somebody who has struggled financially their whole life, there could be any number of things, right? There could be fear, there could be judgment, there could be any number of things about what money means or what having money means. So we have different ways of being with things based on our experiences, based on those belief systems. So let's just continue with that example. If you're somebody who struggles with money, if you're somebody who has these challenging beliefs about what it means to have money or to create it, whatever that is, if you're somebody in that camp and you look at that person who has ease with it, and you might really enjoy some ease with money, then when we work with that mindset, we can start to create a different way of being with it. We can start to create that ease and that, I use it as a tool, right? Think about this for a second. As a tool, we've got all of this emotional stuff that happens with people around money, but really money's no different than a hammer or a screwdriver or any number of other tools, right? It has a purpose, and its purpose is meant to facilitate trade and commerce between people, right? We need it. Like, there's no getting around it. In this world, we need money, but it is no more important than a hammer or a screwdriver when you need a hammer or a screwdriver, is it? Right. So getting past the emotion, getting past those belief systems that tell us that something is wrong or hard or bad or whatever, that can be the thing that helps you to break through and break free of the circumstances that you've previously created. Because remember what I just said, we create our circumstances based on the belief systems that we carry. So if I have a negative, and I don't like that word, but it's a good one for this. If I have a negative relationship with money, then I am going to continue to create struggle and lack and all of those sorts of things. So if I want to change that, I can. And that's the really great news. When I start to shift my belief systems about that tool, that thing that is money, when I start to shift my belief systems, my circumstances are going to start to change because I'm going to start seeing things differently. I'm going to start choosing different things. Isn't that exciting? Some of this stuff is a little bit tricky to work with, and that's why I'm here, and that's why I do what I do. That's why I'm here live every Friday. That's why I'm talking wherever I can talk, because I have a mission to help people that it doesn't have to be so hard. Life doesn't have to be hard. Life can be joyful. Are you ready? Would you like some of that? Yes, please. I would love more joy, more joy. Okay. And I mean, you may or may not have already realized that I'm a pretty happy person most of the time, right? I will have all the joy that I can get. Please and thank you. Okay. So if you'd like to choose something different, you are absolutely in the right place. Grab that pen and paper. We're going to keep on going through this stuff, but the third segment of the show is where that pen and paper is really going to come in handy. So let's talk about what this thing really is all about. Let's just sort of get into it. The first thing, we're going to talk about the subliminal soundtrack a little bit more. So when we're talking about choosing joy, very often the opposite of that. The opposite of that is some sort of victim mindset. And victim mindset is really one of the most insidious ones that we work with. Okay. Because it tends to go like everywhere. Well, all of them impact everything, but it tends to really, really dig in deep, the victim idea. Okay. So let's go back to money for a second. If I believe that wealthy people are evil or bad, then it's somehow their fault that I don't have the things that I would like to have, right? Because there's not enough. There's not enough for them, or they are purposely hoarding, or do you see what I'm saying? Like there's the energy around this thing, the energy around this thing. So the victim mindset is one that tells us that our circumstances, our emotions, our lives are dictated by things and people outside of us. And let's be really clear, there are sometimes things that happen that are completely outside of our control. It's life. It's life, but you don't have to live there. You do not have to unpack your bags and move in. All right. So, victim mindset tells us that we feel a certain way because of the things that are happening. When we're operating from that space, there's a lot of judgment. There's a lot of judgment about this is right and this is wrong, this is good and this is bad. So we've already decided, right? We've already decided that all of these things are something, and we're attaching a lot of emotion and a lot of energy to that judgment, whatever it is. Okay. We're attaching a lot of energy and a lot of emotion to that. And that's where we need to step back and break it. Because when our emotions aren't involved, isn't it easier to work with whatever circumstances? Think about that for a second. When our emotions aren't involved, then we can be really clear-headed. We can make decisions based on logic and what makes sense in the moment, or any number of other factors. But when our emotions are heightened, we tend to be very reactive. This is why it's so important for us to sometimes allow ourselves a bit of space between the thing or the person or the circumstance that's happened before we take any kind of action. Whenever possible, give yourself a couple of days to process, to allow that to sort of settle before you take action, because very often that's when we regret the thing that we said or did, isn't it? We react from that emotional place. And then a couple of days later, when we cool down, we go, oh, didn't handle that as well as I could have. Right. So, very important to allow ourselves a little bit of space when our emotions are really heightened before we try to make especially big decisions. So, the opposite of the judgment, and I'm just going to share this with you quickly. We'll get back into it in our next segment, but we do have to go to break. So, the opposite of this judgment is this allowance. It's an allowance of things being what they are. It's an allowance of us not having to be in control of those things. So think about nature for a second, right? How much allowance is there in nature? I've got this massive maple tree in my backyard, and that thing doesn't care what happens. It doesn't care. It's in complete and utter allowance of nature and whatever is happening. If it rains, it's okay. If it snows, it's okay. If the squirrels and the birds climb all over it, it's okay. Do you see what I'm saying? So being in that space of things just are what they are allows us sometimes to navigate things in a much different way. And it also is where we can choose how we're going to feel about things. Did you know that you could do that? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so stick with us. You're with me on Time to Rise and Thrive on Inspired Choices Network. I'm your host, Jackie Mott, mindset and empowerment expert. Today, we are talking about joyful living, making the choice to be joyful, even when your circumstances don't really make sense for you to do that. So stick with us for a moment. When we come back, we're going to get more into this conversation. We will be right back in just a moment.
What do you tell yourself when you're not listening? This question came to Jackie Mott when she was trying to find peace and purpose in the wake of tragedy. She began to understand that a lot of her pain and choices had been the result of how she perceived herself and her place in the world. And she set about creating a new subliminal soundtrack that would support her in creating a life of abundance, joy, and fulfillment. To learn more about how she did that and how you can do the same, join Jackie on her radio show, Time to Rise and Thrive, every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Central, 11 a.m. Mountain, and 10 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email becomeahost@inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is the Time to Rise and Thrive show with mindset coach and facilitator of change, Jackie Mott. To participate in the program, join our live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. For more information, visit phoenixcoach.ca, where you can follow Phoenix Coaching online. Now, back to the program.
Hello and welcome back to Time to Rise and Thrive on Inspired Choices Network. I am your host, Jackie Mott, mindset and empowerment expert. Today, we are talking about joyful living, making the choice to be joyful, even when there doesn't seem to be any reason to do so. So I'm going to share with you something that, so there's a summit that I'm part of. And by the way, there are going to be several. I've been invited to speak at a bunch of summits over the next little while. In case you're not sure what that means, a summit is basically where somebody organizes a whole lot of speakers to come in and talk about their area of expertise. So we were on one yesterday, and what I'm thinking about specifically, there was one speaker who talked about how we perceive things, and I just loved it. He's also a mindset guy. I can't remember what his name is. I'm sorry. I wish that I could give credit because it was absolutely brilliant what he said. So Let's go back to this victim mindset just for a second. So a victim mindset would be like, okay, you said something that really upset me, or it's your fault that my feelings are hurt, or do you see what I'm saying? That's the victim mindset. The truth of the matter is that nobody can make you feel any way that you don't choose to feel. I know, I know that's ouch. And it's absolutely true. So, with this speaker yesterday, and by the way, that summit is still ongoing. Find me on Facebook if you'd like to see some more of this brilliance, because oh my God. But this fellow was talking about the mindset, and he said somebody had told him years ago that attaching the idea of malice to something that somebody has done. Now, we all know what malice is, right? Like that's that like, eh, I am intentionally doing you harm. Don't attach malice to something that happened where it could be explained by incompetence or lack of knowledge or lack of awareness. Has that ever happened? I know I've done it. You say something and it just pops out of your mouth and you don't realize how it sounds on the other side. You don't realize that you've now said something that's, upset somebody because it didn't seem upsetting to you the way it came out, right? So sometimes these things that happen in our world that really potentially could hurt our feelings or upset us are completely unintentional. It's so important for us to not only look at the act but the intention behind it, because very often, especially the people that care about us a great deal, they're not going out of their way to try to cause us harm or hurt our feelings, right? They might say something, and it's so important for us to go back and say, hey, I kind of felt like this is what you said, and give them an opportunity. Give them an opportunity to say, oh my God, no, I'm sorry. That wasn't what I intended. Or it came out the wrong way or something. There was a funny story a million years ago. I was walking down the road and I was crossing a street in my neighborhood. And there was another neighborhood family that, my son and the kids played together, and the parents hung out and drank coffee or wine or whatever we did while the kids were playing. And I must have been deep in thought. I honestly don't even know exactly what happened, but this mom called me days later, or maybe I called her and said, "Hey, what's going on? I haven't talked to you in a few days." I don't remember all the details, but when I spoke with her, she was very upset with me, because apparently when I was walking across the road, she was the car that had pulled up and was waiting for me to cross. And when I looked at her, because, I look at people when I'm walking in front of them, make eye contact to make sure that I know they see me. Apparently, there was some look on my face, and she thought that I was just so upset with her, or such a bitch or something. It was, it was crazy. It was crazy. And the strength of her feelings and her reaction to that caused a bit of a thing. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I don't even know what I was thinking about, but no, it absolutely wasn't meant to be directed at you. I must have been thinking about something that was going on and deep in thought or something. So once you can have those conversations, you can clear things up right away quick. You don't have to live there. This is what I'm saying. You don't have to stay in those things. And especially important with the people who matter in our world in some way, shape, or form, that we find it within us to say, hey, this is sort of how I felt about whatever happened, and give them an opportunity to, and maybe they are upset with you. Also gives an opportunity to clear the air if that's the case, right? If we just sort of stuff it down, then you could carry that around for years and nobody even knew that you felt that way at the time. Yeah. So we can do ourselves all kinds of harm when we allow ourselves to carry around these things that may not even be true. Remember, what we believe to be true will be true for us, even if it's based on completely incorrect information. The information that she thought was real about me walking across the road and looking at her, it absolutely was not true. But she had attached to it. So this is the thing. We get to choose. We get to choose how we're going to handle ourselves. We get to choose the importance and the emotion that we are going to attach to anything. Okay. Anything. And I know that might be a stretch right now, but this is what happens. You practice and you get better and better and better. And then before you know it, you're doing it like anything else. This is a skill that anyone can learn if they choose to embrace it. If they choose to embrace it. So, one of the things that really came up for me this morning as I was getting ready to do the show, there's something that I've been hearing about, and I'll be really honest with you. I'm not sure how I feel about this whole thing. I have some theories, I have some ideas, which I'm going to share with you right now. There is this thing that I've heard called toxic positivity. Have you heard of this? So, here's where this rubs me the wrong way. I believe that we are all responsible for ourselves. And I believe that we attach meaning to things that may or may not actually be correct. Remember what we believe to be true, right? So when I'm thinking about that this morning, I'm like, okay, so there are people out there who are saying, you're making it wrong for me to feel the way that I feel. I can speak for myself. That is never my intention. Never my intention. My intention is always to honor how someone feels and do my best to make a safe space for them if they need it. Okay. That's always my intention. And I'm a naturally positive person. So I show up with a smile on my face more often than I don't. Okay. Number one. Number two, I choose to be positive because I understand that when I look at this world, if I embrace the negative stuff, the hard stuff, the difficult stuff, and I make that the most important stuff, then I'm calling that into my life. And I've had enough of that. Thank you very much. I've had enough of that. So I choose to focus my attention on all of the positive things, all of the wonderful things that are in this world, all of the wonderful, wonderful people. And I choose to look at people most of the time from a place of they are doing the very best they can. And you have no idea what battle they're fighting behind closed doors. No idea. So I choose to be in a space of not attaching too much to the actions unless it is very purposeful, unless it is like clearly meant to cause me harm, in which case I will. Okay. But most of the time, I choose to sort of let people do and be what they need to do and be in that moment. All right. So the idea of toxic positivity rubs me a bit the wrong way because I'm not saying that you have to be positive. I'm not saying that you have to feel a certain way. I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying anything. What I'm saying is I'm happy. What I'm saying is I choose happy. And if you'd like to do that, you can do it too. So the way that I interpret this toxic positivity, it's a choice that people are making. You're making a choice to have a reaction to something that somebody has said and take that to mean that somehow you're wrong. You can drop that. You get to choose the importance and the emotion that you attach to anything. And when you get really good at this, that's where the freedom lives. Because I don't have to care. I don't have to concern myself or waste my energy with what was their intention. What was their intention? What did they mean by that? Who has time for that? Focus on the stuff, that is moving you forward. Focus on the stuff that is good in your life, and you will attract more of that. And who doesn't want that? Right? Yes. So you can join me. You can join me. You'll find me here every Friday afternoon. You will find me on Facebook at Jackie Mott Mindset and Empowerment Expert. You can even go to my website, jackiemott.com, and all of these summits. I think there are 5 or 6 more that I'm booked to speak on in the next 6 months. And I was just invited to be at a live conference in Calgary in November. You get to choose, my friend. I'm going to choose to focus on how freaking awesome my life is for the most part, and deal with the stuff as necessary. It's a choice that I get to make. Do you see what I'm saying? Yes. All right. So we have to go to our second break now. Don't forget to grab that pen and paper if you haven't already, because when we come back, I'm going to get into the how do you do this? Like, I get it, Jackie, and maybe it would be nice to do that, but I don't know how. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that when we come back. So I am your host, Jackie Mott, mindset and empowerment expert. You are with me on Time to Rise and Thrive on Inspired Choices Network. And when we come back, we're going to continue this conversation about joyful living and how to choose joy, even when your circumstances may not really look that way. So stick with us for a moment. We will be right back.
What do you tell yourself when you're not listening? This question came to Jackie Mott when she was trying to find peace and purpose in the wake of tragedy. She began to understand that a lot of her pain and choices had been the result of how she perceived herself and her place in the world. And she set about creating a new subliminal soundtrack that would support her in creating a life of abundance, joy, and fulfillment. To learn more about how she did that and how you can do the same, join Jackie on her radio show, Time to Rise and Thrive, every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Central, 11 a.m. Mountain, and 10 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
What do you tell yourself when you're not listening? Our subliminal soundtrack plays in the back of our minds 24/7. It's filled with everything we've ever learned about money, relationships, body, and sexuality, about every single aspect of our lives. If you don't have what you desire, the Subliminal Soundtrack Reset program may be the very key to changing it all. In this 8-week program, designed by Jackie Mott, you'll learn to replace messages that stop your desires with new ones that not only support you in creating what you truly desire, but expand your life to higher levels of joy and pleasure. Go to phoenixcoach.ca today to sign up and begin creating your life on purpose.
How wonderful would it be to carry your favorite Inspired Choices Network host with you throughout your day? Well, now you can. Inspired Choices Network now has its very own mobile app. Our free app offers live streaming shows, along with thousands of podcasts and TV episodes. Our shows cover a wide variety of topics. Whether you're waking up with us, carrying us through the day, and taking us to bed with you, we're always here for you to enjoy. We're easy to find. Just search for Inspired Choices Network in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store.
This is the Time to Rise and Thrive show with mindset coach and facilitator of change, Jackie Mott. To participate in the program, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. For more information, visit phoenixcoach.ca, where you can follow Phoenix Coaching online. Now, back to the program.
Hello and welcome back to Time to Rise and Thrive on Inspired Choices Network. I'm your host, Jackie Mott. Today we are talking about joyful living and choosing joy, even when our circumstances may not really look that way. So grab that pen and paper if you haven't already. I'm going to share with you a couple of really exciting things that are going on in my world. So I told you about this summit that we're doing, or that I've been part of this week. So this one is called Clarity, Confidence, Connection. And it has been absolutely brilliant. I have been watching some of the other speakers share their wisdom and their knowledge. Oh my God, some of the stuff. And I've had a few breakthroughs. You know, sometimes we listen to somebody say something and it's like, wow, I hadn't thought about that, or I'd never looked at it from that perspective. Brilliant. Like my colleague with the, maybe it's not malicious, maybe they just don't know. Right? Yes. Doesn't that free things up? If I can look at this from a place of maybe it was just a mistake, then it's easy for me not to attach to that, right? This is what I'm saying. There have been so many brilliant speakers and they are still running today. There is still also an option to get a VIP pass go to my Facebook page. It'll give you all of the information, and if there's anything that speaks to you, you can still grab the free ticket to watch any of the speakers that haven't yet spoken, and grab the VIP pass if somebody else speaks to you that you would like to get the recording of their session. There are some really great gifts, by the way, too, with the VIP pass. So lots of amazing stuff. These summits that are coming up, some of them are more business related, some of them are more sort of spiritual, because, they speak to different parts of me. And the talk that I'm giving really fits in well with what they're doing. So if you see something like that on the Facebook page and the content speaks to you at all, I would really invite you to grab a free ticket. Every single one of them has that option. So grab your free ticket to register for any of them. You can see me live and a whole bunch of other brilliant people who are speaking to many different aspects of life and business. Yes, so do that. Now, here's where we're going to get into the practical stuff. Okay, are you ready? Pen and paper. The first thing that we need to really pay attention to is learning to recognize our reactions. And this could be physical, this could be emotional. Learning to recognize our triggers, learning to recognize what is happening. Okay, because when we recognize this thing, whatever it is, when I start to feel a certain way in my body, or when these emotions start to come up, this is what happens. Okay. When we start to recognize that, the next time it happens, we go, oh, I know what this is. I know what this is, and I know what to do. I know what to do to shift this thing. So pay attention. Pay attention to what's happening in your body. Pay attention to what's happening in your mind. Pay attention to the stories that you're starting to tell yourself. Pay attention to the emotional reactions that you have. And also, what does it cause? Does it cause does it cause you to get sick to your stomach? There are a lot of people when stress levels shoot through the roof, especially really fast, will have that kind of a physical reaction. I'm sick to my stomach. I've got a bad headache. Pay attention. What does it cause? Okay. And also, does it cause bad behavior? And again, we are not coming at this from a place of judgment. We are looking at this from a place of awareness so that we get to choose. Okay. When I feel this way, I yell or I scream or I say bad things, or worst case scenario, some people get very physical. And by the way, I'm not saying that I do those things. I've been known to yell every once in a while. Yeah. But these are the things that that happen in my behavior when I start to feel that way. And what can I change by not reacting in that way? I've known people who have really wow, the reactions sometimes. So being aware of what happens with you when you start to feel a certain way allows you to make a choice to not go there, not embrace that thing that maybe doesn't make you feel so great. Okay. So pay attention to those things. And when you start to feel that way, you're going to apply some of this other stuff. And I'm going to give you a few options for further things that you could do after we get through this sort of tips and tricks part. The second thing that I would like you to consider is, what can you change? What can you change in the circumstance? One of our other brilliant speakers yesterday, was talking about how when one person in a relationship changes, two possible outcomes will happen. Either the relationship will change, or it will come to its natural end. It will come to its natural end because it served its purpose. Okay. And how she was illustrating this, she was talking about an ecosystem. And when one factor in an ecosystem changes, so think about water, for example, when the water's toxicity level or temperature or right, the I don't know, sediment, I don't even know where that came from, but when the water becomes contaminated, and I'm not saying that in a bad way, but if things change and, for example, a different type of sediment is coming into the water, maybe that makes it not drinkable anymore. Do you see what I'm saying? Or maybe it makes it better for you. I don't know. It could go either way, right? When a factor is changed inside that ecosystem, everything changes. So if that sediment now makes that water toxic, then the animals or the people that might consume that water are going to be harmed by it, right? So this is what, oh, I'm sorry, Kim says the pH level shift. See, this is what I'm saying, right? And the type of fish that can survive in that environment might change. It might cause all kinds of stuff. So when you look at it from that perspective, it's a factor that's shifted in that ecosystem, and everything in it will be affected, right? So how does this relate to what we're talking about right now? What can you change about the circumstances? Can you show up differently? You know, if you're in a situation, and this happens sometimes, we find certain people difficult to be with or difficult to spend time with. And it could be anything. I mean, it could be that you don't really appreciate someone's sense of humor, or any number of like really benign things. It doesn't have to be that they've done horrid stuff, or maybe they have. And we find those people difficult to be around. Can we change anything by the way that we show up? Can we change anything, even if it's just how we feel about the situation, by showing up in a way that doesn't allow that, or doesn't allow time for that? Because maybe it's simply, I'm going to limit my exposure. I'm going to limit my exposure. And maybe I'm going to walk into that situation with awareness, knowing exactly what I can expect, because it's happened, historically every time. So you can pretty much guarantee it's going to happen again. Now I know what to expect, and I've got a plan to remove myself if it gets really uncomfortable. Do you see what I'm saying? So what can you change under those circumstances? And what we're really getting into is something that I call radical personal responsibility. So remember how I talked about that toxic positivity? Radical personal responsibility would interpret that to be, okay, well, you know, I get to choose. I don't have to engage. I can just keep scrolling past people's stuff on Facebook. Did you know that? I don't have to watch. I don't have to read. I don't have to engage. I don't have to anything. I don't have to. Are you seeing? You have a choice. I don't have to engage with the person who has a different opinion and tell them how stupid I think they are. I don't have to do that, right? I don't have to give it that importance in my world. Remember, I get to choose the importance and the emotion that I will attach to anything or anybody. So I can choose to just get on with my day, right? We don't have to waste our emotion, our energy on things that really aren't that important. Somebody's allowed to have their opinion. Do I need to change that? Why? Why? It's not my job. It's not my job to police someone else's, except under extreme circumstances. Of course, there are certain circumstances where it's very important for us to engage because we need to, right? But we don't have to do that. That is a choice. The third thing, and this is one of the best tools that I have ever found, okay? I talk about it often because it is one of the best tools I have ever found. Practice purposeful gratitude. Practice purposeful gratitude. We are, and I'm going to feel fairly comfortable saying that most of the people who will have access to this podcast, to the recordings, to my show live, most of the people who are in a position to hear what I am talking about right now probably have so much to be grateful for. Even if we just look at, okay, I'm safe, I'm healthy, and my physical requirements, my physical needs are met. Think about how many people on this planet don't have those things. Now, for you to watch this show, I'm going to say very confidently, you have to have internet. You have to have electricity. You have to have a device that allows you to log in somewhere, whether it's a phone, whether it's a computer, a tablet. You have to have certain technology in order to do that. How many places on the planet don't have access to that technology? Or they don't have access to medical care, or they don't have access to clean water to drink? Or do you see what I'm saying? Think about how blessed and fortunate you are to be in the position that you're in. We have this whole thing in this world now, and it always makes me kind of laugh because I think, wow, how hard must life have been when people had to drag their dirty laundry down to the river and bang on it with rocks to get the dirt out? We are so blessed, and maybe that's part of the reason why people, there's just too much time on our hands for something. We don't have enough hard work to do in order to appreciate everything that we have. So that's where you get to choose, my friends. That's where you get to choose. The beautiful thing about this gratitude is where it becomes a tool for you to use. When I am feeling upset, when I am feeling, angry or bothered or any number of other really uncomfortable emotions, the times that I remember to stop for a moment and say, life is actually pretty damn good. Life is actually pretty damn good. And allow myself just a few moments to sort of roll around in that. The fact that I'm safe, the fact that I'm well and healthy, the fact that I have my physical needs met. Those are your basics. If you have a car to get where you need to go, if you have people in your life who love you, if you have opportunity to create a different career for yourself, or like so many, all of these summits that I have been invited to be part of, if you have access just to the summits, all of these people coming together to share their wisdom free, and me, you want me? Do you see what I'm saying? You get to choose the importance and the emotion that you attach to everything. So you can focus your attention on what's going wrong in the world or politics here, or you can focus on or other people's bad behavior. And I'm using quotes on that bad behavior, because again, you have no idea sometimes what was behind that or what the intention was, right? We can focus on all of that stuff and roll around it and make ourselves absolutely miserable. Right. And if you choose that, God bless. I have no judgment. I have no judgment. But where I'm going to go is I'm going to go to that. What makes Jackie happy? What do I have to look forward to? What makes the people that I care about happy? What can I do to be a positive contribution to the people I love and to the world in general? I can come in here on Friday afternoons and I can shine this pretty smile and I can talk about how you don't have to do anything. You don't have to choose hard. You get to choose easy. You get to choose fun. You get to choose joy. Okay, that it is your choice. It is absolutely your choice. And now we're getting pretty close to the end of the show, and there is one story that is actually quite funny. There's one story that I would like to share with you before we wrap up. And this goes back to, I don't even know how many years ago. I'm going to say 20. It might even be more than that. And I had this job. I was working in a group home. I was, I don't know, I think they called us interveners or facilitators or something. And the job that I had was working with adults who were deaf and blind. And our job was to help them interact with the outside world. So we would, do all kinds of stuff. We would take them places and we would be their eyes and ears. So we would sign to them or we would communicate however we needed to communicate, whatever. And there was a whole lot more to it, but it wasn't an easy job. Okay. It wasn't an easy job. Very fulfilling. I enjoyed it quite a lot, as did a lot of the other people that worked with me in this place. So I will never forget, there was a fellow named Scott, and he and I just, like you just get along with certain people. and he had worked the night shift. So he was waiting for me and I think someone else to show up to take over before he could head home. So I pulled up and I had had a rough morning, and I'm not even going to share with you what had happened, but it was a rough morning. And, getting out the door had been difficult. I think I probably hit every red light. There had been a situation at home before I left. There was all kinds of in that morning. Okay. So Scott is sitting in the living room and he's watching out the front window and he's waiting for us to arrive. So I parked my car and I got out of my car and I slammed the door behind me. I did. Slammed the door behind me. And I was just in that place. Have you ever been there? It's not much fun, but sometimes we need to allow ourselves to sort of process things, right? So I was in that kind of a place. And when I walked in the door, Scott was sitting on the couch laughing his ass off. So of course I had to ask what was funny, of course. And he said that was the funniest thing. That was the funniest thing. You got out of your car and I knew something was wrong just by the way that you were, like what I could see, your body language or whatever. I knew something was wrong and things hadn't gone well this morning. But he said about halfway up the walkway to the front door, all of a sudden he said it was the most amazing thing. It was the most amazing thing. You went from this face of into, and when you hit that door and you open it and you say, "Good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing today?" He said, "I have never seen anybody do that in my life. I have never seen anybody switch like that quickly and that dramatically in my life. It was so funny to watch you do that." So this is the thing. Okay. One of the things that is important in my world for me to consider is the impact that I'm going to have. And so I have always been very conscious of when I'm walking through the door, what am I carrying with me? How am I impacting the energy of the room that I'm walking into? And that was the story. That was the story with Scott that morning, to watch that process. And it was really wonderful for me because I didn't even realize that I'd done it. Do you see what I'm saying? So it was really quite hilarious. And then of course it became a story that was shared around for at least a couple of weeks. It was funny. So we get to choose, my friends. We always get to choose. I could have that morning, I could have walked in with that on, and how would that have impacted our clients? How would that have impacted my workmates? How would that have felt being around me in that space? Because I don't enjoy that. I don't enjoy occupying that space. I can't imagine that it's pleasant for other people either. Do you see what I'm saying? So you get to choose. So that's really what I've got for you today. And we are right down to the wire. Kim says, love that. What energy am I carrying into a room with me? Isn't it brilliant? Right. So think about that stuff. So that's it, my friends. That's all the time I've got for you today. Quote that I would like to leave you with is this: living from a space of joy is a choice. It doesn't mean that we don't face difficult things. It doesn't mean that we aren't aware and engaged of what's going on around us. It simply means that we are choosing to decide what we allow to be important in our lives. It means that we take responsibility for ourselves, how we handle difficult circumstances, and that we consciously choose to recognize that life is pretty great, even if it's sometimes hard. Because really, it is pretty great, isn't it? It's your choice, my friend. What do you choose? What do you choose? It's all up to you. And if you'd like more of what you've just witnessed on today's show, then please come back and join me next Friday. Next Friday is going to be an interesting show. We are going to be talking about transformation, up-leveling, and how we can navigate some of the more difficult stuff. So come back and see us next Friday for that. Again, you can find me at JackieMott.com. You can find me, Jackie Mott, Mindset and Empowerment Expert, on Facebook. You can find us on all of your on-demand podcast channels, either by searching Time to Rise and Thrive or by searching Jackie Mott, Mindset and Empowerment Expert. You can find us wherever. So please feel free to go back and watch the shows again. Have a great week. I will see you next Friday.
Thank you for joining us for Time to Rise and Thrive radio show. Jackie Mott will return next Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time 12 noon Central, 11 a.m. Mountain, and 10 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. We hope you'll join us. Have a fantastic week, and remember, it's your time to rise and thrive.